Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com here with the wrap-up video for playing on a budget Izzet Elementals. Extremely fun deck. Extremely fun deck. Sorry about the frustration there. When that happens on MTGO, I'm a person that's very susceptible to tilt. I consider myself kind of a more emotional person than a maybe level-headed person. I think that's why some people enjoy my personality so much is because of those wild emotions. But for all you more level-headed players, I apologize for the tilt. I understand that, you know, some of those keeps were terrible and whatnot, but it's a good little experience for me, though. Sometimes I need to have these bad luck runs so that I can actually have experience dealing with them in larger tournament settings. Like I said, this has happened to me. The Pro Tour Gate Crash was one of those, or Pro Tour Dragon's Maze was one of those days. On day 2, this is exactly what was happening. I would mulligan a 2-land hand or mulligan a 1-lane hand, and then get 6 lands and a creature and have to mull that, and then go down to 5 with like 2 guild gates. And it was just, day 2 was rough, let's put it that way. And this was an example of those runs. Some of those games with the Night Veil Spectre, you know, hitting everything off the top that would have, against the mono blue, that would have been the solution, and then me pulling a land instead. So tilt happens. It's part of Magic. That's part of variance. I've seen people quit the game because of this. I know there was a popular YouTuber that had a channel, and he went to a Grand Prix, and the same thing happened to him. It was actually kind of bad because it was a comment from a player that kind of made him rethink Magic, and he decided to quit because of it. Because basically the guy, he was running a Bant control list, and I think that he was playing against a deck that was incredibly easy to beat with Bant control, but he mulliganed down to 5 both games and then proceeded to draw into nothing. And the opponent was basically like, well, my deck's supposed to beat your deck anyway, blah, 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 blah. And the guy just, you know, his jaw dropped, and he wanted just to choke his opponent, because no, luck was the entire reason why you won that matchup. And he got so frustrated that he immediately, you know, impulsively, right there at the venue, sold his entire collection, sold his deck, sold his entire collection that he had on him to the vendor, and just basically quit Magic, just cold turkeyed Magic. And I feel for the guy, because there's been times when I've wanted to do that, where I've just been like, you know, screw this game. It's I'm at a Pro Tour. I'm in day 2. Why does this have to be happening to me? And you just have to. That happens to everyone. I think the Pro Tour Dragon's Maze was, I was having a card signed by Conley Woods, and this was right at the end of day 2, and right after the draft portion of day 1, and there was a little bit of break between the draft and when Constructed started, and I was talking with Conley Woods for a second, and I think it was Joe Larson, I think that was his name. He was talking about how he just went 0-3 in the draft portion, and no joke, he drafted like 3 Augur Sprees out of 1 pack of Return to Ravnica, and had this like incredibly sick, just awesome Rakdos deck. And he went 0-3 because of the same thing, because variance happens, and you cannot control mulligans, you cannot control bad draws, you cannot control your opponent top decking and whatnot. So anyway, if you are thinking about going competitive in Magic, this happens. Take a breath, take a break from Magic. Don't do what I do and just keep playing while you're on tilt. And eventually the odds will even up, and everything will go great. See, I come from a poker background, so if you really want to play a game that will basically make you tear your hair out, that is a worse game with variance. Magic, at least you control a lot more factors. You can control the cards going in the deck, you can control mulligans, you can control a lot of things. So there's a lot more skill base in Magic the Gathering. And that's why I do appreciate it, because the variance is fun in Magic. There's no better feeling than top decking that, like last week, the Crypt Incursion off the top to win the game. I think those are a net positive to Magic the Gathering, and the variance makes it, of course, the game that we love. So it's just part of it. It's something you have to roll with, something you have to deal with, and whatnot. Anyway, so let's just talk about the deck now. I don't think it's a crap deck. I think it's a very awesome deck. My last opponent for insulting my deck, shame on him. There was no need for that. Just because he lost a pack, whoop-de-doo. I mean, I lost 3 packs against, you know, tier 1 decks. Again, that's part of being a rogue deck builder is I'm going to run some crazy decks, and that's something you're going to have to deal with as a spike. It shouldn't be this. It's one of my my pet peeves in Magic the Gathering is the spike mentality, where it's only appropriate to run tier 1 decks at a tournament. There's no rule that says that. There are plenty of players like myself, like Conley Woods, that doesn't adhere to that. And, you know, I'm sure there's other pros that don't adhere to that mentality. But you do run into those unsavory characters that want to insult you, want to put you down for your deck choice. Again, this was a practice for me. This was to see if this deck was viable. And again, I'm going to do that in the 2-man queues, as it does force my opponents to play. Unfortunately, when you're in the tournament practice, you will get that behavior all of the time. It is unfortunate thing about MTGO. You'll queue up in tournament practice with a deck like this, and first comment after you play it, like you play Molten Birth, you'll get basically sworn at and told to get off the tournament practice, and they'll quit. Right there. So the 2-man queues basically forces that opponent to play a match because there's something on the line and whatnot. So anywho, let's get to the deck. What I liked about the deck, absolutely like the grab and go strategy. I think against mono black, I think that puts us over the edge against Desecration Demons if they can't actually have anything on the board that's decent. I did misplay that. I should have taken the Nightvale Spectre, which would have been able to cast the other catch on the Desecration Demon. I don't know if that would have done anything, as he would have been able to untap and just kill me anyway with the Mutavault and his own Nightvale Spectre. But nonetheless, I'm loving the grab and go type strategy. Again, the grab and go is what I like to call catch and release Act of Treasons with the combination of Barrage of Expendables and Bubbling Cauldron. Unfortunately, I do think we need a better way to sacrifice our creatures. I'm not sure if I like hidden strings in this deck. It didn't seem... Again, Nivmagus Elemental and Young Pyromancer I think do make it worth it though. And I'm thinking that the deck didn't see justice of what it can do. It's very explosive with like Bident of Thassa. That's our card draw. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see that in action. There was a few cards that I thought of. Hammer Purphoros is one card I definitely think would be decent in this deck, and maybe we could go down to 23 lands, but again, I was getting, the moles were happening with no lands in hand or one land in hand, and then subsequently mulliganing into an all land hand and drawing all lands. And so again, that's just variance talking. I don't think we have enough testing to know exactly what the right land count is. Another card that I think that this deck would definitely utilize more is Purphoros. We didn't get to see Purphoros or Thassa in this deck. I'm starting to kind of think Thassa would be amazing if we got at turn 3, and then we could get those lands off the top. Again, when Journey into Nyx comes out, these scry lands are going to make this deck so much better. And if we get another card like Serum Visions, I'm thinking since Serum Visions did not get printed in the dual deck of Jason Vraska, I'm going to go out with a prediction here and say Serum Visions is in Journey to Nyx. All right, and it is a very powerful card. And I know that Magic or Wizards wants to get away from the first turn blue like cantrip cards. But Serum Visions is probably the weakest out of course, Ponder, Preordain, and Sleight of Hand. I would say Serum Visions is the weakest of the 4. And so I'm thinking that it could, and the ability that blue does need a little bit of help right now. You have the blue control, and you have the mono blue devotion. You don't have a blue tempo. And I do think blue tempo is an archetype that we like to see in Standard when it's not oppressive like the good old Delver days and other Merfolk and Fairy days. So I'm thinking Serum Visions wouldn't break the format right now. I'm thinking that it would at least add a huge value to this deck. As then, of course, you can go like a Young Pyromancer, Quicken. Quicken is your other cantrip in Serum Visions, and play a very low land count, and then just like Essence Scatters and whatnot, and the deck will be good to go. And especially with the Temple, being able to scry even more off the top, I am definitely thinking a blue Temple with Young Pyromancer could definitely see a spotlight, a day in the sun. So again, the cards I absolutely love this turn. That was amazing, turning the Master of Waves, which gets rid of all the abilities, and then all of his tokens die. Maybe more of these would be better. I think the 2 of Izzet Charm is the correct number. But this deck definitely does have some work to be done with it. But I think it's a great deck. It's a great fun deck. I'd run this in FNM. I'm definitely going to mess around with it. Definitely going to try to turn this into a non-budget version. I'm thinking we could actually splash in a color, maybe like an Ephera. If we splashed in white and put in Ephera, and maybe I'm sure there's some white spells that are decent to put into this. And just for the release alone might be decent, as each player sacrifices an artifact, a creature, enchantment, a land, and a planeswalker could actually give you advantage when, if the only thing you have on board is like elemental tokens, and they have something big, like against mono black, they could have like a Underworld Connections, because what's the order? Each player sacrifices an artifact. Yes, so they'd have to sacrifice, I think it goes from how it's worded here, an artifact has to be chosen first, then enchantment, or then a creature, then an enchantment, then a land, then a planeswalker. So if they did have the scenario of having a whip out, a Underworld Connections out, a Desecration Demon out, then you could, and then a swamp, of course, you could get 4 cards with release. And again against like Monsters deck, you had the planeswalker there, and if they have a Courser of Crufix, okay, creature comes before enchantment, so they could actually target their Courser of Crufix, but then they wouldn't be able to target it twice. Yeah, they'd have to target a Courser of Crufix with the enchantment. I'm not sure how that would work. A judge can weigh in on this, exactly tell me how release would work, but I'm just saying in this format, release actually might be a decent card to splash for. And then you have access to the temple, the blue-white temple, which would help filter through this deck a lot. And again, I'm sure there's some other cards that could definitely be utilized in this deck. So I'm loving this deck. I think it's a very fun deck, and that's what Magic is all about. That is why people are drawn to my channel, as I do like to brew different fresh decks. I don't like to play Mono Black Devotion 100 times a month. Again, my shelf life for my decks is probably a week before I quit them and just start playing another deck. So that's probably why I don't make as many high finishes at tournaments and whatnot. Is I do get bored with the same deck and do switch things up. But I'm glad that's why you guys enjoy my channel, enjoy these Playing on a Budget, just because I do keep it fresh. Anyway, this has been Kevin with Gathering Magic and my channel, RogueDeckBuilder.com. Be sure to check that out. Thanks for watching.